We live in a disenchanted world. We see in the Gospels Jesus would walk around casting out demons, but in modern culture we walk around casting God out. We've exorcised God from the world. So the result of this, how this plays itself out in this shift in religion, is that the church has moved from the center to the fringe. So the church used to, even cities are designed with churches and cathedrals at the center. Some cities, the buildings can't be taller than the cathedral. So we still see our architecture representing this sense that the church was at the center, but now it's being pushed to the fringe. We've moved from the acceptance of a public faith to a private faith. So just to give you an example, and I'm sorry to use a sensitive issue, but this is an actual example. So there was one high-level presidential candidate who was asked, what's your opinion on abortion? And he said, personally, as a Catholic, I'm opposed to abortion, but publicly I think that women have the right to choose. Now, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but when you're a Catholic, you're entitled to the Pope's opinion too. So to have a personal sense of faith, but to separate it from the way that you implement this or live this out in public is the only way that faith is tolerated. If he was to try and impose this, you would hear claims like you are legislating morality. And by the way, the only thing you can legislate is morality. That's all you legislate. You legislate morality. We've moved from being seen as strange, you Christians with your eternal life, and your Jesus back from the dead and all that. Thank you for the holidays, though. Thank you. To actually being seen as a threat. So the book Good Faith that came out said Christians, the number one way that Christians are defined in the world is irrelevant and extreme. So what you believe has nothing to do with everyday life, and oh my gosh, I'm completely terrified by what you believe. You're actually the root of everything wrong with our society right now. And we've moved from tolerance to penalization, where it used to be, look, let's get along in spite of our differences, where now the church is being heavily penalized, not just the church, but other religions. And so as a result, many of the historic Christian institutions that have relied on some sort of government protection or support, that's slowly being removed, and I wouldn't be surprised if the vast majority of Christian higher education institutions move into like terrible crisis in their future. Now, like I said, these are just observations. The result of this, so how does this, so do you feel all this stuff, by the way? Just like you feel it floating around, it's certainly in our world. The result of this is what, again, Charles Taylor calls the cross pressures of the buffered self. So, I want you to think of yourself as all of these pressures, all of these currents, all of these assumptions, all of these shifting frameworks, and you're just putting up a wall that's just like, oh gosh, I don't know. Look, man, I just believe in Jesus, and I just like trying to be kind or whatever. I just try not to screw up too much, and I'm just, whatever. And someone's like, well, what do you think about this? Like, oh, gosh, I don't know, man. Let's just pay the pastor. If he does a series called The Controversial Jesus. Gosh, how many of you feel that? Where in your heart you believe this, but there's so much pressure externally. Well, just a couple of general observations connected to that. The result of this for older folks, and I'm trying not to be, I'm using generalizations, I'm aware of that, there's exceptions and differences, but the result of this tends to be an older generation tends to have some level of fear about this much cultural shift all at once. It feels like an onslaught that you can't wrap your life around. And there's a fear and a self-preservation, which in many senses the world they grew up in has been taken away without their consent, forced on them by unelected officials through court legislation that's irreparably moving their country in a place they don't recognize anymore. So there can be fear and self-preservation, and the result of that is that there can be a posture of condemnation towards our world. And you can raise a lot of money on fear and self-preservation. And you get a lot of people in the media who play on those instincts.